Hello everyone, welcome to the last video in our series looking at Gatsby Benchmark 8. So hopefully you found the others really useful. And today we're going to cover the last session, last benchmark. So Debbie, Gatsby Benchmark 8, personal guidance. Yeah, what's your thoughts on this one? How would you like to start?
So this benchmark really states that every student should have opportunities. I'm going to say it like that, opportunities for the guidance with a careers advisor, internal or external, but qualified to level 6. And I think this benchmark really links strongly to benchmark 3 as well, that the need for sort of, tailoring it to individual needs. We both know this can cause schools a bit of a headache. And so I think it's great that we're talking about it today. So the ideal is that every student, the whole year group, would have a one-to-one guidance interview with a level 6. And for most schools, that means buying in a qualified careers advisor. And certainly, we've both talked about how time has been squeezed for these interviews, even just in the last couple of years. They've almost gone from an hour to 30 minutes in a lot of cases, which is, it's very difficult in 30 minutes to have something that's meaningful and has impact, especially if it's just a one-off, it's just an event, it's just a tick box that ticks that benchmark 8 because we've done the one-to-one guidance. So I think it is worth us thinking about how to make personal guidance really impactful, really meaningful to the students. And I think for me that means that personal guidance is a package. It's a bigger thing than just the one-to-one guidance interview with the level 6 advisor. It's about considering where can we provide that guidance, even right back from year 7, starting in small little sessions about understanding different pathways and different options, all the way through the school calendar, all the way through each year group, so that it isn't just a one-off. And one of the things that I've been looking at is the idea that if we look specifically at the one-to-one guidance, making that as meaningful as possible, topping and tailing it, topping it with pre-guidance. So whether that's student-led, because there's tons and tons of sort of pathway planners, isn't there, on the platforms that schools have got, whether it's Unifrog or Zello or Kudos or Star or any of the others. Maybe there's that possibility of a student doing that pre-guidance that maybe filters out some of the things like, I definitely know I want to do this. I definitely know I'm not interested in that pathway. I'm not sure about this one. That can make that short session with the one-to-one advisor a bit more impactful, a bit more focused. The other thing I've really seen that could be useful, is the question about selecting students for the guidance. In an ideal world, every student in the year group would have an interview.
Yeah.
But we've got to be realistic and honest. We know that not all schools are achieving that. So, it's about being rigorous with your selection, your rationale, I think, for selecting students, and being able to demonstrate the rationale for that. So whether it's that you're using, making sure that every student with a EHCP has got an interview, every student that's, a SEND student's got an interview, every student that is at risk of NEET has an interview. So sort of rag rating your students, red, amber, green, might be a way of deciding who's going to get the best out of these interviews if you're not able to do every single student, which is what we're aiming for. So making sure that you've got a strong recording mechanism in case your SLT or your governors or Ofsted want to say, how did you choose your students? So I think that's probably something that's important. I think logistics, where are you going to hold these interviews? It's got to be somewhere that's away from distractions, that's private, so that students can talk freely. When are you holding the interviews? They're always splattered across the timetable. And I was chatting to you before about my experience as a teacher, as a secondary school teacher, not knowing which of my students were going to be leaving for their one-to-one. And sometimes the students would just pop up in the middle of a lesson and go, "Oh, miss, I've got to go."
Yeah.
And I didn't know that, and it's disruptive. And then the student's late for their meeting, or worse still, the student forgets, or the student doesn't feel it's important, so they go, "I don't want to go." And then, what a waste of money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one aspect, but these are really important activities. And so communicating to the whole school when students are having them, I would have much preferred to have known at the beginning of my lesson these students are leaving for their interviews, and I would have been able to remember to tell them and make sure they're off on time. But I think we was talking about how staff just don't realise the importance of these.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because if other staff members at the school don't appreciate the importance of these interviews, then that is only going to transpire into the students, isn't it? In terms of if staff question, well, why is this student missing my lesson to do the guidance interview, then really that's basically telling the student, well, this lesson is more important than your guidance interview in a sense. So I think I think it is vitally important that the whole school understands the process, the plan in relation to guidance. And I think you're right as well, Debbie, in that it's not just that build up to that one-to-one session. And it shouldn't necessarily be a surprise to students as well. If you, for example, going back to Gatsby Benchmark 1, and you're presenting what students are kind of entitled to, and you presenting to the students what their journey is going to be like in relation to careers education, then it shouldn't be a surprise that in whatever year you choose to select it, that they're going to have this one-to-one interview. And
absolutely,
if you can get into the student's mind that before they even get to that interview, these are the things that they should have, as you mentioned, that kind of pre-guidance session, and then there's that piece of an evaluation to be done afterwards. Time and time again, I've seen action plans being set for students, but who's following that up? Is that a job for parents to do?
Yeah.
There's no reason why it couldn't be, but again, you need to kind of empower your parents to understand what that means.
You do,
or whoever it is as well. So I think for me, it comes back to almost Gatsby Benchmark 1 in a sense, and making sure that there is a really concrete plan that's communicated across pretty much all stakeholders.
Yeah.
Everyone understands how the guidance is going to be delivered. And again, we've not spoken about it as well, but I think it's really important that you monitor and evaluate the service that effectively, especially if you've bought a service in, how do you know that service is quality? Is it, are they integrated as part of your school setup in terms of, do they understand how the school works?
Have they met the pastoral team? Yeah,
exactly.
And we're talking about communicating. It's not just about letting teaching staff know that students have got their one-to-one. It's about letting parents know that your student's going to be having their one-to-one, because I would definitely have appreciated knowing that, because I could have prepped my daughter and said, you make the most of this. Make sure that and perhaps sometimes, especially for those students who are a bit at risk of NEET, maybe inviting the parents into those meetings as well.
Definitely. Yeah.
So that
sorry, Debs, go on.
No, I was going to say, so just so that they can help, so they can be educated themselves, they can help the student, they can make sure the action plan's followed up.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, let's be honest, everyone delivers guidance, don't they?
Yeah.
If you think about it. And but at the same time, what is the quality of that guidance like? Throughout your school, are teachers giving poor guidance because perhaps what they think is good guidance, perhaps it's not going to be consistent across your institution. And I was having that conversation with John Ambrose at complete careers. I'm sure most of you will know who he is, and he's willing to offer kind of free workshop on what good and what bad guidance looks like, so to try and effectively upskill everyone that provides guidance, because everyone does it. Let's be honest.
And more people could do it. If they had that training and they understood what that means. Again, the pre-bit and crucially the follow-up to a guidance interview. The tutors can play a great part in this.
Yeah.
If we think about training tutors, certainly to have a short session with the individual students afterwards to find out, they can be part of the evaluation process. Just a few questions about how they felt their interview went, what they learned, were they surprised by anything, has their opinion changed, was there things that didn't help. That follow-up is so important.
Yeah.
And I think it's about encouraging a whole school approach to this, isn't it? Not just somebody from outside the school coming in and doing it. So yeah, there's a lot in this particular benchmark, and there's a lot that can make some real serious impact, I think, if schools just think about it a bit broader.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. And as I mentioned, putting it into the kind of the Gatsby 1 element and really almost diving quite deep into it, and I think it can have a massive positive impact on students. If it's if you really look at it in some depth, rather than just saying, we cover it by doing this. How can you add a bit more depth to what you're offering on this one, I think.
And again, going back to that idea of upskilling other staff in schools, will enable schools to look at personal guidance more as a package and not a one-off, so that they can maybe offer drop-in sessions for any year group, for any student, so that there's sort of, clinics across the school calendar, just drop-in sessions for students to talk about their options and their thoughts. Opportunities for parents to drop in and join in those conversations as well.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, Deb, as well, and it comes back to what we said in an earlier video about creating a culture, isn't it? Of kind of a coaching culture.
Yeah.
You've heard it in workplaces before, haven't you, where you have like a workplace buddy in which you kind of meet up that might not necessarily be in your department to support in your development. And I guess it's kind of similar to that, isn't it? You could match a tutor up with a group of students that perhaps don't necessarily come across each other that much, but you're creating again a culture of kind of coaching, and the students could give some suggestions to the tutor as well.
Yeah,
definitely. In terms of lessons and things like that. I think there's quite a few innovative ideas that you could come up with, I think, to support this one.
Yeah, I think there is, definitely. And in terms of resources, the toolkit itself is absolutely fabulous. That's got a real comprehensive guide for career leaders in there. On the Careers and Enterprise Resources Directory, there's some really good case studies about this sort of triage approach to give personal guidance that's really useful, and we'll put the links again for those resources to accompany this. But yeah, there's a lot to this benchmark that perhaps career leaders and whole school then aren't considering to make the best of this. Yes, if you're buying this service in, it's not cheap, it's expensive.
Yeah.
And you really want to be making the absolute best out of this and making sure it has got impact. And so monitoring and evaluating and, ensuring that students are getting the best for that very short amount of time that they're with that advisor is really important.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well, thanks, Debbie. I think that's been
Thank
good.
you.
We've kind of covered all the benchmarks, haven't we? And we hope you've all found that really useful. Again, we're here to help pretty much all of those benchmarks. So your enterprise advisor as well can support. So yeah, please do get in touch if you've heard anything that you'd like to know a little bit more about throughout the video series. So, and we'll look forward to working and seeing you again soon. Thanks very much.
Indeed. Thanks a lot.